Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
This is the Bloomberg Daybreak Europe podcast. Good morning. It's Monday, the 4th of August. I'm Caroline Hepker.
And I'm Stephen Carroll. Coming up today, Donald Trump says he'll pick a new Fed governor and data chief within days to key positions for his economic agenda.
The worst US labour data revision in 7 years sparks a dramatic reversal of market perceptions of the strength of the American economy.
Plus, can Europe still be an EV contender? A look at BMW's plans to challenge Tesla.
Let's start with a roundup of our top stories.
US President Donald Trump says he will announce a new Fed governor in the coming days. One of the 7 governors, Adriana Kugler, said on Friday that she intends to step down early from her position. The US president has been putting the central bank under unprecedented public and vocal pressure to cut interest rates. He told reporters he would be filling Kugler's seat soon.
I have a couple of people in mind. I'll be announcing somebody for the filling of the person that left. A woman left, as you know, who was a Biden appointment, either Biden or Obama, but I think a Biden appointment. And she left early, and I think she left because she agreed with me on interest rates, and yet they were on the other side of the ballpark, right? So I'll be announcing that probably over the next couple of days.
Trump's claim that Kugler agreed with him on the path of interest rate doesn't chime with her past public comments on the issue. With Kugler's departure, the president has the opportunity to appoint a governor who more closely aligns with his preference for lower interest rates. Any replacement is seen as likely to take over Jerome Powell's job running the central bank when his term ends in May of next year.
Now, the changes on the Fed board come as a major negative revision to jobs data has upended views on the weakness of the US labour market. The revised figures make the past 3 months the worst for job creation in the US since the pandemic. After the report, the White House fired the Bureau of Labour Statistics boss, Erica McEntire. The White House National Economic Advisor Kevin Hassett told Meet the Press on Sunday the firing was because the revision was poorly explained.
The president wants his own people there so that when we see the numbers, they're more transparent and more reliable. And if there are big changes and big revisions, we expect more big revisions for the jobs data in September, for example, then we want to know why. We want people to explain it to us.
Kevin Hassett there speaking to NBC. The shock revision caused a rush into treasuries. The 10-year US yield dropped 16 basis points on Friday. The 2-year yield fell 28 basis points. Those moves reflected heightened anticipation of the Federal Reserve cutting interest rates in September.
Wall Street banks are losing ground in Europe as US tariffs have spooked clients. According to Bloomberg data, companies across the continent are diversifying their banking relationships away from US firms due to the levies. European banks are taking advantage of the extra business. So far in 2025, roughly half of Eurobond deals from non-US companies did not involve any of the 5 biggest US banks. That's up from 5% last year. In sterling bonds, Wall Street banks didn't participate in almost half of the deals, compared with 64% of them this year.
Saudi Arabia and its partners will hike output by 547,000 barrels a day in a bid to reclaim market share in the oil market. OPEC Plus agreed to sharply increase production in September as part of its latest effort to reverse supply cuts. It marks the latest shift in the cartel strategy from defending prices to opening the taps. Here is the view of Vandana Hari, founder of Vandana Insights.
What the market looks like starting the fourth quarter of this year and going into next year, I think that's where right now the expectations are for a little bit of a swing back into oversupply.
Vandana Insights founder Vandana Hari speaking there to Bloomberg as the International Energy Agency forecasts a surplus of 2 million barrels of oil per day in the fourth quarter due to swelling supplies across the US.
The UK's Financial Conduct Authority is to consult on a scheme guiding firms on how to compensate customers on missold car loans. The news comes after a court ruling that will see firms avoid enormous payouts, overruling a previous judgment. Bloomberg's Tio Adebayo has more.
A Supreme Court ruling awarded lenders a major reprieve in the pivotal UK car finance case, but firms could still be on the hook for at least £9 billion. The FCA is set to consult on a redress scheme to determine the payments, which they say could plausibly be as high as £18 billion, though a lower figure is more likely. The news comes after the UK's top court handed a big boost to banks on Friday with its judgment. Various lenders, including Lloyds and Santander, have already taken a hit of about £2 billion for potential losses relating to the loans. In London, Tiwa Adebayo, Bloomberg Radio.
Democratic lawmakers in Texas say that they have left the state in order to block Republicans from redrawing congressional maps. In an effort to thwart the redistricting initiative encouraged by President Donald Trump, their departure leaves Texas short of the minimum number of lawmakers required to hold votes. They have left the state for the Democrat-held strongholds of Chicago, New York and Boston. Gene Wu, the Democratic leader in Texas's lower house, has said they are, quote, not walking out on our responsibilities, but walking out on a rigged system that refuses to listen to the people we represent. Eric Holder, chair of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee, says that Republican efforts to redraw the state were authoritarian.
We have to understand that the nature of the threat that has been put upon the country through what they're trying to do in Texas has really increased the danger to our democracy. And as a result of that, we've got to do things that perhaps in the past I would not have supported.
Eric Holder speaking there as the Texas governor, Greg Abbott, said that they may have committed felonies by departing. According to the state's attorney general, the district court may decide if it amounts to an abandonment or forfeiture of elected office.
Those are your top stories on the markets. The MSCI Irish Pacific Index up 0.6%, but amid weakness on stock markets, or rather amid the sell-off that we had on stock markets both earlier in trading and in the Friday session as well after the US jobs report. Now, Eurostoxx 50 futures are currently up by 0.5%, although we did see a sharp slump on European equities on Friday on the back of the jobs data as well. We do see a bit of a bounce in yields as well after the big move lower in yields too. So the 10-year Treasury yield up 3 basis points this morning at 4.24%. The 2-year yield saw its biggest one-day drop since December of 2023, is up 2 basis points this morning to 3.7%. The Bloomberg Dollar Spot Index, 0.1% weaker. The euro starting the week at 115.82.
Now, in a moment, we'll bring you more on President Trump naming 2 new key officials who could shape his economic agenda and BMW's faster rollout of its new electric vehicles. But another story has caught our eye this morning, and it's quite optimistic when it comes to trying to age well. It's from Bloomberg Opinion's Lisa Jarvis.
So this is, I suppose, another twist on the idea of if you just live a healthier lifestyle in general, you'll live better longer, but it's particularly focusing on brain aging and the risk of dementia and all of the things that you can do to try and lower that. And this is based on a new study that has looked at 2,000 participants in their 60s and 70s, all of whom were at risk of dementia. Split them into 2 groups. One set their own priorities, where the others were given a highly structured program that involved regular exercise, specific diet, computer-based brain games, and lots of social activities in particular. Now, both groups did see significant improvements in their cognitive health, but the group that had the intervention were able to set back their aging clock by much more. Really interesting to see, particularly the community element of this has been particularly important. That was seen as having the most benefit for the group that did get involved in it. The question, of course, is how much an intensive program like that would cost. Are the results over the long term sustainable enough that merit the cost of investing in a program like this? But it's something that the American Alzheimer's Association has been looking at, providing that sort of community support in 10 cities across the US to try and see what sort of effects that could have over the longer term.
I think it is so interesting, isn't it? I mean, you said right at the beginning, if you just do, I mean, we know, don't we, a lot of the things that are good for us that we must, eat a healthy diet and, get out and walk and exercise. That's the thing. Lifestyle changes are so tough. I really think that this study is so important to understand what tools you need to do it, to put people around you, put you in touch with people who help you on that kind of healthier journey. Anyway, I thought it was a really interesting piece.
We'll put a link to it in our podcast show notes as well. Well, let's bring you more now on those two key appointments Donald Trump says he'll make in the coming days. His choices for the Fed governor position, vacated by Adriana Kugler, and the head of the Bureau of Labour Statistics may shape his economic agenda. Our senior editor, Bill Ferries, joins us now for more. Bill, Donald Trump fired the Bureau of Labour Statistics chief, Erica McIntyre, after last week's weak jobs report and the revisions to the data as well. The head of the BLS is not normally a politicised role, but is this a sign that could be changing?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything is possible. But listen, the BLS is not one of the, really more high-profile agencies. It is, let's just be honest, it's somewhat of a nerdy place. It is full of people who have, degrees in statistics, economics, and they're really kind of hardcore math and data folks. So I think there would be some serious questions in the markets if someone who is really there for or seen as being there for a political purpose is put in place. The BLS data has long been kind of a gold standard, even internationally. So I think any damage to that will probably rebound and perhaps hurt the administration more than it would help.
Yeah. In terms of the Fed then, there's also major change potentially there because there is now an open governor seat and that person could well be the next Fed chair.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Adriana Kugler's resignation kind of accelerates the thinking that was taking place at the White House. She was due to leave in January, so that was already on the radar. And I think the expectation is that, yes, someone who will come in and is more sympathetic to Donald Trump's focus on lowering rates is likely to get that job and could become the next Fed chair. So you have to think about people like Kevin Hassett, who's the National Economic Council director. You have to think about people like former Fed Governor Kevin Warsh, who might only want to go back to the job if he knows that he's going to become the Fed chair. So those would be two key names coming up. And I do think that's between those two jobs, that's going to be the priority one for the administration to focus on.
This, of course, is coming at a time when the jobs data on Friday gave a bit of a wake-up call, certainly to markets, about the outlook for the US economy and how it's adapting to Donald Trump's policies. On the data, these were very stark revisions in particular. What did we learn from them?
Yeah, I mean, the change was huge. So if you look at May, it was revised down by 125,000 jobs. So you had initially reported 144,000 increase. At the end, it was just an increase of 19,000. It was roughly similar for June. There's been a problem with declining participation in some of these surveys. And so when there's a lot of change going on in the economy, the data keeps rolling in after that initial report, and we don't know much more from the BLS other than they said this was larger than normal. But it is a big warning shot across the bow of the Trump economy now. He's been in office for over 6 months. He's got tariffs in place. He just put a whole new set of tariffs in place. He announced them last week. They come into effect this week. That's going to affect the economy. So I think it is a warning shot about what may lie ahead.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you so much, Bill, for being with us. Our senior editor, Bill Ferries. Do you think it's worth noting, though, that the former BLS head, William Beach, was very critical, saying that it was damaging to the Bureau of Labour Statistics to have this situation where the head was fired and that he didn't think that there was any grounds at all for the firing, in his words. But another layer to this story around the statistics and the jobs data in the US.
We're to BMW now, which is unveiling a range of new electric vehicles, which its CEO says will be the benchmark of the industry. It's a big bet by the German car maker in a sector that's been dominated by Tesla and Chinese brands. Bloomberg's Stefan Nicola, who leads our team covering the European auto industry, joins us now for more. Stefan, good morning. Tell us then about the iX3 and why is it such a big deal for BMW?
Yeah, good morning. So yeah, it is indeed a really big deal for BMW. And that's because it's the first of a new range of electric cars that are really meant to sort of change the conversation in the competition against Tesla, but also these Chinese brands that are coming up, BYD, Xiaomi. And it's an SUV that has been developed for the past few years, and it has technology that within 2 years is supposed to be in all of BMW's models. So this is really the first of a wave of new electric cars that are really trying to change the competitive conversation in Europe, in the US, but also in China.
Yeah, so I suppose the big question is whether BMW can compete with Tesla and all the big Chinese brands. I mean, in terms of not just what it looks like and the kind of computing power inside the car, the price, I mean, lots of things to think about when it comes to whether BMW can compete.
Absolutely, yes. The benchmark, the CEO did tell us in an interview, we went to Munich and we looked at a camouflaged car and we talked to the BMW CEO, Oliver Zipse. He did say this is going to be the benchmark. The car has a range of 800 kilometers with a single charge. That's more than Tesla's longest range Model Y, and it also charges faster. So on that side, they have some good arguments. The key question will be, will the customer be convinced? Will it have the kind of sexiness that you have to have with new cars? You have to have the best software. You have to have really slick interior, slick design. And of course, the BMW CEO says that it has all that. But in the end, it depends if the customer agrees.
Stefan, is this not a terrible time to be launching a new car and making such a big bet into electric vehicles, given the trade tensions with the US and with China as well?
Yes and no. Absolutely. Trade tensions are a drag on most major car makers. BMW has a factory in the US. It also has a factory in China, or several factories in China. These factories don't just produce for the local market, but they also export. So tariffs is hitting BMW. However, it's also kind of an interesting time because Tesla is weaker than it's been in a while. Elon Musk's politics have sort of turned away a lot of customers in Europe. Tesla hasn't issued a new car in quite a while. So yeah, it's also kind of an interesting moment. And maybe there are some customers up for grabs here that maybe weren't 2 years ago.
And what do you think is going to be the biggest test then for the car? I mean, it's got to be unveiled and everything to the public.
Yeah, BMW is going to unveil this in September at the Munich Auto Show. One of the biggest tests, if not the biggest test, will be whether this car can also convince people in China. China, the world's biggest auto market, and the German luxury brands used to dominate there on combustion engine cars. Now the local brands dominate on EVs. So the biggest test is, can this car change the conversation that the Western brands are behind on batteries and software? And can it compete also on price, right? Because, Tesla, but also the Chinese local brands are offering their electric cars at really cutthroat prices. And, BMW does still want to make margins and make profits. So it's going to be an interesting conversation and interesting fact to see how much that car will cost and will it be able to convince Chinese buyers.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, your morning brief on the stories making news from London to Wall Street and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed every morning on Apple, Spotify and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
You can also listen live each morning on London DAB Radio, the Bloomberg Business app and Bloomberg.com.
Our flagship New York station is also available on your Amazon Alexa devices. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130. I'm Caroline Hepker.
And I'm Stephen Carroll. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day, right here on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.